Welcome to Be Less Stupid. I'm the host, Jon Hotchkiss. On this episode of Be Less Stupid, I'm going to take you to the spots on both sides of the U.S.-Mexico border where drug cartels have dug more than 200 underground tunnels to secretly smuggle tons and tons of illegal cocaine, meth, pot, and other illegal drugs into the U.S. So this is Friendship Park, and on Sundays, they are not building a wall here. El Barrital. So before the trucks head to the United States. But first, if you think it is batshit crazy that Trump's base supports Judge Kavanaugh despite serious allegations that he sexually assaulted a girl in high school, and yet they're outraged that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez danced in a high school video, please click the red subscribe button. I believe it is right here. Okay, let's get right to it. In a Rose Garden address where Trump conceded defeat to Nancy Big Balls Pelosi, the president kept up his lies, saying that a border wall will stop nearly 100% of drugs and human trafficking into the U.S.
The walls we are building are not medieval walls.
Listening to Trump is like listening to a cat explain calculus. Most of the illegals in the U.S. came to America legally and overstayed their visa. No wall will stop that. And yes, some illegals do sneak across the border. That is true. But it's a small number by comparison. And if you want to see me explain why the wall won't work, click the link in the description for my video called 7 Reasons Trump's Stupid Border Wall Won't Work. Now, as Charlie Sheen has said a billion times, let's get back to the drugs. According to the Department of Homeland Security, 90% of illegal drugs enter the U.S. through a legal port of entry. At this crossing, cars sometimes wait as many as 2 or 3 hours before they can get back into the United States. Drugs are hidden inside cars or trucks that cross one of the 27 legal land ports along the U.S.-Mexico border. And as I revealed in a previous video, only 1 in 5 trucks that enter from Mexico are randomly searched for drugs or illegal immigrants. You can find a link to that video in the description as well. Drugs also enter the U.S. hidden in airplanes that land at one of the multiple hundreds of legal runways within 100 miles of the U.S. border with Mexico. Drugs also get into America hidden inside cargo and shipping containers that dock at one of the dozens of legal ports on America's coasts. Drugs are also smuggled on smaller boats that evade the U.S. Coast Guard and land somewhere along our 12,000 miles of ocean coast. Some drugs, it turns out, also enter the U.S. by train. Some drugs are literally catapulted over the existing fence, and some are dropped over existing fence using drones. And yes, some drugs, not a lot, but some, are carried on land over the border by individuals who either have the drugs attached to their body in some way, inside their body, or inside some luggage or a duffel bag. But that is not all. There's one other way that illegal drugs get into the U.S., and that is through a tunnel that's been dug under the U.S.-Mexico border. In the last 20 years, U.S. Border Patrol has found more than 200 tunnels dug by members of the Mexican, Sinaloan, and Medellin drug cartels that originate on the Mexico side of the border and end as much as a half a mile into the U.S. One of the most sophisticated tunnels ever found was right here, under this street in Otay Mesa, California, on the Tijuana border. It's adjacent to this legal border crossing where more than 2,000 trucks cross north into the U.S. every day. The tunnel began in this Tijuana neighborhood inside an ice factory, and it was 600 yards long. It went under this ground right here and ended inside one of these warehouses on the U.S. side of the border. The Border Patrol says it was one of the most sophisticated tunnels they'd ever found. It had ventilation, lights, a rail system, and apparently a Starbucks and a strip club. That is what made it sophisticated. The DJ at the underground strip club wore a monocle.
the rest of the tunnel, which runs south down into Mexico, and there's a rail system for a cart to transport the drugs from Mexico into the United States.
Looks like the tunnel goes down about 30 feet here.
When this particular tunnel was discovered, border agents found 5 tons of pot inside, along with Seth Rogen and hundreds of half-eaten bags of Cheetos. In April of 2016, under this same street in Otay Mesa, Border Patrol found another tunnel even longer and more sophisticated. This one was a half a mile long. Plus, on the Mexico side, there was an elevator. And the Starbucks inside had a drive-through where you could pay with Venmo. In October of 2013, U.S. Border Patrol found what they called a super tunnel under this street right here. It began in this Tijuana community known as Libertad, and it ended in an industrial park 600 yards away on the U.S. side of the border. The tunnel was built by the Sinaloan drug cartel. On the day it was discovered, the U.S. Border Patrol seized 8 tons of pot, 325 pounds of cocaine. The tunnel was 35 feet underground, 4 feet tall and 3 feet wide. It had an electric system, ventilation, and lighting. Snoop Dogg referred to it as, quote, Disneyland, because it was his happiest place on earth. Now, if you're like me, you're probably wondering, how does the drug cartel hide hundreds of metric tons of dirt that gets cleared to dig out one of these tunnels? It turns out they get rid of the dirt the same way they smuggle drugs into a prison. They put the dirt into condoms and then stick it up someone's ass. I may have a few of those details wrong. In 2007, the Border Patrol found a tunnel right here along the U.S. border. On the north side is Tecate, California. On the south side, it's Tecate, Mexico. While the tunnel wasn't more than a few hundred yards long, it was an astonishing 6 feet tall. You see, the ground soil along the U.S.-Mexico border is unique. The combination of soil, rock, and dirt is called bentonite. It's a clay that's soft enough to easily dig through, yet sturdy enough that most tunnels do not need any interior support structures. It makes completing the tunnel go much faster.
This tunnel seems to be constructed in the same manner as previous tunnels we found in Otay Mesa, California, using jackhammers. They cut through the soil, which is a soil high in clay content, and it is somewhat self-supporting. There's no need for shoring at this point in the tunnel.
You can see where I'm standing here. I thought the border was the gate. That turns out not to be right. It turns out the border is it's right here. This stone right here. It says United States border with Mexico. And well, I crossed over it, and I couldn't just cross back. I had to turn off the camera because now it's technically in Mexico. I went through their customs. The gentleman was very kind. One of their border guards was very nice, who let me cut through some of a gate, and I went back through United States Customs, where I had to turn off my camera. I had to show my identification. I had to answer some questions about what I was doing and where I came from. Anyway, that's what happens when you're dopey. For the most part, tunnels are not used to smuggle people into the U.S. As more people go in and out of the tunnel, it increases the likelihood of someone being caught and the tunnel being discovered. Plus, cocaine is just more valuable. You can't get people who are poor to pay as much money to come to the U.S. as cocaine is worth. Now, as you can see from this video that I recently shot, this is brand new 30-foot tall border fencing that was erected over the last few months of 2018. I know this because I was on the U.S. side in late 2017. Prior to this new border fence, the border in this neighborhood was made of corrugated metal and was about 5 or 6 feet high. So, here's a great example of the problem that we face as a country and as a people. It's about who we are and what we stand for. It's one of the things that no one really talks about in the debate over immigration. The president calls these people murderers and rapists. He says that they have diseases. He scares the shit out of his supporters, making them think that a caravan of mariachi music playing rapists is moments away from marching up Main Street, USA. Trump's got his base convinced that Los Lobos and the Frito Bandito are going to move next door to them, take their jobs, and rape their wives.
All right, fellas.
None of which is true. Immigrants commit far fewer crimes than native-born Americans. But look, as we know, facts have no place in Trump's alternate reality. But Trump knows something powerful about human behavior. We vote based on emotion. Some of us less so, some of us more so. Trump knows that his base is susceptible to this emotional manipulation. So to keep them on board, he keeps them scared.
Who would have
And yet
thought?
he reminds them that the only one person can keep them safe. It's him. And he'll do it by putting up a wall to keep the bad hombres out.
Build that wall. 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 Build that wall.
You see this? This is the community of Libertad. It's pretty much Tijuana's poorest neighborhood. As you can see, lots of the homes have just plywood roofs. Lots of the homes don't have running water. Most don't have a proper toilet, and electric power is only sporadic. On the other side of this wall, just a few hundred yards away, the first thing you see when you cross the border is a Carl's Jr. and a Cinnabon. That is not a joke. No wall is going to stop people who don't have toilets from wanting to get to the place that does. No wall is going to stop people who don't have a Cinnabon from wanting to get to the place that does. You put up a 30-foot fence, they go and buy a 31-foot ladder. Just like I did. When I was in Tijuana, I bought this ladder at a hardware store about 500 yards from the border. And I wasn't the only one with this idea. So were these 150 or so migrants who were just caught sneaking over Trump's new 30-foot high border fence last week. Now look, I don't want to just be the guy that points out problems by telling you facts. I also want to suggest a few solutions so that we can all be a little less stupid. Members of the U.S. Border Patrol have asked for more money to pay informants and to hire more guards to do undercover surveillance. We should do that. Also, we should invest in technology like radar and sonar and night vision, etc. And if there's time, I'm just saying, if there's time, we should see what we can do about solving poverty in the third world, America's appetite for illegal drugs, big business's appetite for cheap labor, and our own appetite for strawberries that don't cost $100 a pound. I'm just saying if there's time. Plus, look, we all know the only reason that Trump wants a wall is so that he can do this. Okay, that's it for this episode of Be Less Stupid. Again, I would like to encourage you to please subscribe to this channel. Click that red button right there. Also, check out our 2 new series, This Versus That and Pizza with Writers. The premieres can be found right on our YouTube homepage. For Be Less Stupid, I'm the host, Jon Hotchkiss. I'll see you next time.